What is happening, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the 182 News Podcast. This is your host, Poppin' Curbs, and I appreciate you tuning in to another episode. The last episode, we got caught up on everything currently happening, mostly in AVA land. Today, this is a bit of a bonus episode. I wasn't planning on getting one out so soon, but I had the idea to do a bit of an Ask Me Anything, so I get a lot of messages, which I enjoy. I enjoy reading the comments and, just discussing Blink and everything with you all. I love it. I mean, obviously, I have a podcast dedicated to it, so I thought it would be fun to field some questions, get some engagement, and I appreciate everybody who sent in questions. I opened it up on Twitter and Instagram, and I got quite a few really rad questions, and I'm stoked to go through these. Briefly, I do want to say that Angels and Airwaves dropped another song, Spellbound, and I think I'm going to save my review for this for the Lifeforms episode. So the next Angels album is less than 2 weeks away, which is insane. We've been looking forward to this for 3 years at this point. It's been a long time. We haven't had a full one since the Dreamwalkers. So whenever that drops, I'm going to definitely dive deep into my thoughts on that. I really think this has a chance to be my favorite Angels album of all time, to be honest. At this point, we have heard clips of every single song on the album. So I'm going to save my Spellbound review and thoughts on that for the Lifeforms episode. I hope to get that out pretty soon after the album drops. So look forward to that one. Also, another thing I was thinking about is September 27th is going to be the 10th anniversary of Neighborhoods, which is crazy. So, obviously that was the comeback album, has a special place in my heart. My favorite band in the world was back. So I may end up doing something to kind of celebrate and reflect back on that as well. But we'll see, time permitting. But regardless, today's episode, bit of a bonus one, wanted to knock this out, and we are going to dive into the questions that I received on the @182 News Twitter and on the @182 News Pod Instagram. So let's jump straight into these. These were a lot of fun. I put some thought into these, and again, I appreciate everybody who took the time to send one in and make this episode fun, at least for me. So first things first, let's kick this off. This came in from Joe Candela, and right along with what I was just talking about moments ago, most anticipated song on Lifeforms. So in case you live under a rock, Lifeforms is the new Angels and Airwaves album dropping here in a couple weeks. The one that I am looking forward to the most at this point, Joe, I think is No More Guns. Reason being, one, Tom posted a little bit of a teaser on this. He's been posting some funny clips of just random things. He just posted one a couple minutes ago of just 5 guys dancing with a clip of an Angel song. But on some of those, he did this one with some skateboarders on it, I believe, are clips of these new songs that we have not heard. So he did Automatic, and he did one for No More Guns. This one is apparently lyrically about the gun violence in America. The teaser sounded like a gnarly little guitar riff. It sounded a bit punk. So I'm definitely looking forward to that one the most at this point. Second question. This one comes in from Jake Cooper. Do you know if Rick Devoe is still involved with Blink or friends with the guys? So for those of you who do not know, Rick Devoe was a longtime manager of Blink. Here's my answer to that question, Jake. Honestly, I don't know the extent of their friendship at this time. To dive back a little bit, just to get people, caught up, allegedly during the first breakup, people were saying that Rick kind of took Tom's side. Rick was kind of on Tom's side of things during the discussions, during the breakup, almost representing him. I do not know the details of all of this. This is what I've heard throughout the years. I do know that in 2015, whenever Tom really kind of stepped away the second time and we kicked off this new era with Skiba, Rick did post a picture saying something along the lines of R.I.P. Blink, with Tom being, I guess, removed or leaving the band at that time. We didn't know the difference. So to me, I don't know what his friendship is like with Scott, Mark, Travis, I believe Tom still follows him on Instagram. So if I had to guess, I would say that, perhaps his friendship with Tom remains, but I don't know. Rick has always been really cool to me. I've reached out to him. He said he's down to do the pod. I need to get him on at some point. He's not involved with Blink anymore, to the best of my knowledge. I think that kind of ended with Tom leaving, end of 2015. I think Rick's story would be very interesting. He started kind of putting on these promotions, and he was putting on concerts and almost like these parties. They were called Big Dummy Jams. That's why his Instagram handle is called that. And, early on, I've heard him tell the story of this lanky blonde hair kid came in asking if he would represent them, and it was Tom. And so I need to get Rick on and get that story. And the conversations I've had with him, he's been really rad. He's answered whatever, folks have asked him. I've seen on some of his Instagram lives. He's told me that he is a huge Blink fan. He said he's the number one Blink fan, which Famous Burrow may have something to say about that. But, I think deep down, he loves Blink. He believed in them. They all grew to an enormous band together. So I don't know the extent of their relationship at this time, to be honest. And I need to reach back out to Rick and try and get him on the pod, and maybe we can get that answered for you, Jake. Next one. This one's cool. This is from Gabex. Would you say Tom is a bigger Padres fan than Mark Dodgers, or vice versa? So I'm a huge baseball fan, if you did not know that. And Tom is a big San Diego Padres fan. One of my best friends works for the Padres, by the way. Mark is a hardcore Los Angeles Dodgers fan. Both of them have season tickets, so they're both pretty hardcore fans. I know most of the games they watch. So this one is really, really tough. The only thing that I can score this on is Tom has been to Padres spring training, and Mark has not been to Dodgers spring training. And for me, as a hardcore baseball fan, the level of, becoming hardcore to me is like attending spring training. I mean, to me, spring training, really, spring training and Blink shows are like my favorite things in the world. As far as extracurricular, fun things to do, I love spring training. It's amazing. It's super small venues. Prior to COVID, you could just hang out at practice. You get to talk to the players. So the fact that Tom has been to spring training, I guess I'll give him the edge, but Mark is extremely knowledgeable about baseball. When he and I chat, we talk about baseball. So that's a tough one, but I will give the slight edge to Tom based on the fact that he has gone out of his way to go to spring training, I think multiple years now at this point. So, but they're both pretty hardcore baseball fans, which is great. I obviously enjoy that, so that's really rad. I root for really both of those teams at this point. Looks like the Dodgers are in the playoffs. San Diego's still fighting, which, they've got a stacked team and lineup. So we'll see how that ends up. It's either going to be them, the Cardinals, or the Reds in that second wild card spot playing against the Dodgers, most likely. So we'll see. We may have a Tom versus Mark baseball playoff, which would be interesting. Okay, this is from John's Myth. If you could spend one day with each Blink member, what would you want to spend it doing? This is really interesting. I enjoyed this question, John, and it's kind of weird because honestly, I almost want to be a fly on the wall and just see them on a normal day, especially a day at the studio or something. So for me, I'll break this down into, I guess, 4. Maybe I'll add Scott. You know what? I'll add Scott. Whatever. So Mark and I play a lot of video games, so I feel like I would just want to hang out with Mark in his studio, play video games, check out his bass guitars, maybe listen to some music, probably along the lines of that. I mean, to me, that sounds like a damn good time. For Travis, I would like to hang out with Travis and see him working with other artists. Obviously he's at the point in his career where he is just crushing it in the producer game. So I would really like to step back and just watch him as a producer. Obviously we know he's an amazing drummer. We've all seen that. Most of us have witnessed that live in person, which to me, that's one of the things where when people talk about seeing Blink or Blink's coming to town, even my friends who aren't necessarily hardcore fans or whatever, I'm like, go watch Travis Barker drum. Just go. You're not going to be able to see this forever. And this dude is amazing. So, with Travis, I think I would like to kick it with him in his studio, maybe see him working with an artist. I'd like to see him lay down some drum tracks because I want to see him get introduced a song and just absolutely crush it in probably one or two takes. And honestly, I'd like to see Travis's workout routine and just what the dude does because he's a machine. So I'd like to hang out with Travis, maybe, box, maybe run a couple miles with him and then see what he does in the studio. I think that would be interesting. Tom, Tom is so all over the place that I don't know what he does all day. I mean, I have no idea. But I think it would be interesting to just shadow him on a normal day where he's busy and has meetings. And then I think, of course, I'd like to see him in his creative space, whatever that is. And that's what's interesting about Tom these days. Obviously, Mark has a home studio. Travis has a studio. So, when they're in music mode or just musician mode, they're kicking it there and jamming and coming up with ideas. Tom, at this point, I don't know that he's doing that for the heck of it. I feel like Tom's more of the type of where, he'll have an acoustic guitar sitting around and maybe pick it up and come up with a riff in the moment and then end up working on it later on, something like that. But I don't know. And so I think that would be interesting to kind of see how Tom works these days. I feel like I would like to go out and just have a coffee or a beer with Tom and just talk. I mean, everybody I've talked to, when they talk about Tom, it's just Tom is Tom. To be honest, I've had recent conversations with Tom and they were interesting for sure. And so I'd love to sit there and just talk to him. I'd like to talk to him about the UFO stuff. I'd like to talk to him about his future plans. I'm all for To the Stars and all the multimedia stuff he's doing. So I'd love to just see his mind churning and all these ideas just pouring out and just seeing, what he has going on in his mind because he has a lot going on. And then, of course, I would love to sit there and maybe just, hold his guitars, strum his guitars, and maybe talk to him about, the creation on some of his songs or how he came up with some of the ideas, something like that. Matt is pretty quiet. We don't see too much of what he does in his everyday life. Honestly, I feel like I would like to kick it with Matt and just paint a picture. Matt is constantly working on art, and it seems like he just has a whole vibe going at his house or apartment or wherever he lives, where he just gets in the zone. He tunes out the outside world, doesn't give a fuck, and it's just him, probably some music, and probably his paintbrushes. And so I think it'd be cool to kick it with Matt and just kind of see what he does one night from an artistic standpoint, and kind of go from there. Scott, most people don't talk about Scott these days. And to me, it's kind of sad, but he just isn't brought up too much. He's out of the spotlight, which he prefers. And I think with Scott, I would just like to pick his brain on the old days, maybe the early days starting out, some of his thoughts, getting into the Dude Ranch era, and just kind of chat with him about, maybe what direction he saw Blink going, or what did he want, or, what happened at the end, just stuff like that. So I think to wrap that up, that's what I would probably do with each of them if I had a chance to. And of course, I would probably bring a bunch of records and ask them to sign them at the end. Got to add to the autograph collection. So that was a good one. Thank you, John Smith, for sending that in. I appreciate it. This one is from Matt Rose. Matt's a rad dude, longtime listener. I appreciate it. He was one of the ones early on who, supported me from the get-go on the pod, reaching out, thanking me for it. So I appreciate you, Matt. He says, do you think Matt and Tom could be in Blink and could both play on stage together? How would it work if so? So I've actually thought about this, and I think it's been discussed on maybe even Reddit and maybe the forums at some point. In my opinion, I do think they could both play on stage together, and I think it would work pretty seamlessly, to be honest. I think Tom could play, the lead typically on his stuff. I think he could obviously do the vocals on his songs. I think Matt could play, more of a rhythm style role, and then obviously do the vocals on California era songs and, up through nine at this point if they play some of those. I think it would be pretty rad, to be honest. Tom is a unique guitar player. He could play some of those early Blink songs, with some of those gnarly riffs, nail those. Whereas Skiba really has always been more of a chord guy, and so I think from a rhythm aspect, I think it would work. The question is, I don't know if that's ever going to happen, and it kind of leads into this next question. So let me roll in that with this. But to answer your question, Matt, I do think they could be in Blink together, and I think it would work on stage. And I think that's how it would probably have to work, is Matt would sing his songs, probably play more of a rhythm style, and Tom would sing his, and while still nailing some of the leads, or they could trade off. It's whatever at that point. So the next question is from Matt. Matt Dahlgren. He says, do you think Tom will eventually rejoin the band? Now, this is my buddy in real life who was on the Blink Friend in Real Life episode. And, most of our road trips to Blink include these conversations and these hypotheticals. And, that's why I really enjoyed that episode. And I think a lot of you did as well. I got some good feedback on that one. So if you want to listen to more of that, that's on the Blink Friend in Real Life episode, several episodes back at this point. He's saying, do you think Tom will eventually rejoin the band? This is tough, man. And the question is, does Tom want to be in Blink? And right now, I don't think he does, obviously. I mean, I think at this point, they had the second breakup. And initially, I think it was a little awkward. We had 2 years where it still seemed like Mark and Travis were kind of staying on their side. And then we had Tom kind of off on his side. And, really for 2 or 3 years there, it was kind of weird. Now, thankfully, we are at a point where they are all super cordial. They're all totally cool with each other, which is amazing. I think Tom is in a great spot with Angels and Airwaves. I think Blink is in a great spot with Matt and the direction they're going with Nine. And so I don't know what it would take for them to get back together. People have asked Mark this, and Mark has genuinely said, I don't know. And he has said, that would take 4 of us sitting down in a room and discussing it. So, hypothetically, if Tom comes back and says, I am 100% committed to Blink, this is what I want to do, that is when the conversation gets really, really interesting. And part of what I always go back to is right around the time that Nine was being released, there was an interview with Matt. And Matt said during the Nine recording process, he asked Mark, and I think Travis, he said, Tom's going to come back, isn't he, right? It's inevitable, right? And he said that Mark said, I don't know. And I 100% believe Mark. He doesn't know. I mean, it's going to be one of those things where if for some reason Tom suddenly feels super passionate about Blink, he wants to go back out on the road all the time, be full-time musician, things would get really interesting. And, part of me is like, I don't know that Matt would want to stay if that happens. I would hope he would. But honestly, the problem with, the 4-piece is I don't know that I see Matt staying if Tom decided to come back. And this is certainly a hypothetical. It's certainly one that, the fan base is always chirping about or curious about, what would happen in that scenario. But to me, even if Tom said tomorrow, I want to be in Blink, I don't know how you handle that. That's a really interesting thing. I think where we are right now is exactly where they want to be. I think everybody's on great terms. I think it's exciting for the fan base. We still got the Blink stuff. We've still got Angels and Airwaves. I just don't see, with as much as Tom has going on, I really just don't see him anytime soon saying that I want to be committed to Blink. And not only that, but go out on tour. I mean, that's the thing. Mark and Travis love being a full-time musician. Love it. For Tom, he's at the point in his career where he loves doing other things. Yes, he loves music. Yes, he's proud of Blink and everything that he built up with that. But he's at the point in his career where he can't drop all of that stuff just to go tour for a year or get into a 3-year album cycle and things like that. So I think for Tom, Angels makes the most sense right now. I think that's where his heart is. I think Blink is doing great. Obviously, they have what they had said, an album's worth of material that they're sitting on. So I don't think Tom's going to come back tomorrow and suddenly have a new album and a new tour. I think we're definitely going to get one more album with Matt Skiba. I can't fucking wait for it. I mean, I love Nine, so I'm super stoked for that. And I think time will tell. I do think Tom will play with them at some point. It could be 10 years from now, could be 15, 20 years from now. I do not know. I do think that Tom will play on stage with Mark and Travis at some point in their lives. I don't know when that's going to be. I don't know if it's, hopefully a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony, one-off, something like that. But if I were a betting man, I would say that they will reunite at least for one show or one song or something on a special occasion at some point in the future, would be my guess. Next one. This came from Gibby DLR. Do you remember where you were when you heard Blink broke up in 2005? I actually don't. I was thinking really hard about that. I was in high school and, hardcore fan, but I believe I probably ended up reading it online. It came through basically a Dave Navarro blog post, which ended up being announced on MTV. So I had to have seen it probably just on MTV or just heard it throughout the hallways at school or something, to be honest. If you could have one of Tom's guitars, Matt's guitars, Mark's bass guitars, Trav's kits, which ones would you pick? This is from Tiny Yet Mighty. Thank you, Tiny, for sending this in. So when I initially read this, the way I took this is if you could only choose one out of those, which one would you pick? Now, the more I read it, I thought, okay, maybe she's wanting me to pick one from each of them. So what I'll do first, Tiny, is I will pick one of each of them. And then I guess, and I haven't decided this, I'll have to think really hard. I'll pick one out of all of them to take home with me and keep forever behind a glass case. So for Tom, God, this is hard because I'm a guitarist, okay? So I love guitars. I actually play them. So to me, God, this is so hard. Obviously, we've got options here. Folks, we've got the white sticker Strat. Now, the problem with the white OG sticker Strat, the one that I recreated, is it is not in the best of shape, and it's destickered for now. And so I don't know that I can pick that one. I don't think I would pick one of the Fender Strats, like the Surf models or whatever, just because, even back when those launched back in the day, I don't know if that was 99-ish, 2000, whenever Fender first officially released them, but I just couldn't get by with just the one pickup. And Tom even said at this point, he can't get by with just the one pickup. So I don't think I would pick one of those. Obviously the Gibson is iconic in its natural color, but the more I think about this, I want one of his Gibson 333s that are painted the gnarly colors. And I tell you what, the last Angels tour, 2019, he was playing an all black one with blue splatter that was amazing. And I think I would take that. These days I really like hollow body guitars. I really like semi-hollow body guitars. And for me, thinking that I'll probably strum it a couple times. I like how it looks. I think it looks super rad. It's super unique. So I think for Tom, I'm going to take a black and blue Gibson 333 that he was playing on that last Angels tour. For Skiba, I love his, it's kind of like a neon green with the blue pick guard, and it's a Fender Jaguar. He was playing it on the last Blink tour. I think I would take that from him for sure. Mark, I think I'm going Pinky. I think I have to go Pinky. Obviously, the dude's got hella rad basses. Crayola would be iconic. Most of California and Nine were recorded with that. But I think I'm going Pinky. For Travis, I'm going with his Plus 44 kit. I love that clear green plus 44 kit that he played. So that's what I would take from Travis's. I don't know where the hell I would put that. I've never played a real drum set, so that'd be kind of tough. If I had to choose one out of all of those, this is where it's really tough because, again, I'm a guitarist, so I like playing guitar, and so naturally I want to go that way. But I'm thinking it's definitely between, I think, Mark's Pinky and Tom's Black and Blue Gibson at this point. And given the fact that Pinky has been played longer, and the history of being played at all those Blink shows, I think I would grab Pinky. I think I'm going to take Pinky. Okay, next question comes from Shark Liat. I still don't know how to say Shark's name. It's Jazz. Shark Liat on Instagram. She does some great art. She did the album art for my single Stay Away. So if you're dropping an album or you just have some sort of artwork you need commissioned, she does an incredible job of taking your idea and bringing it to life. And her question is, what is your least favorite topic to talk about when it comes to Blink history? I'm okay talking about most stuff. You all know me by now. I like to keep it positive. I'm not going down any shitty rabbit holes. I'm not doing anything that would, paint any of the members in bad light or anything like that. I would say if I had to pick a subject, it would just be the stuff that ends up getting a little awkward, which would be probably Boxcar Racer stuff, just because of, what it did to the band at that time. Obviously, 20 years later or whatever, everybody's cool with it now, but it still is just kind of awkward. And alongside the stuff with that, it would probably be the stuff about Tom rejoining and such, just because it's just weird and it's hypothetical and really we don't know. So probably that. This comes from Samantha Nork. She's a great photographer. If you have a gig or you need a photographer for your show, hit her up on Instagram. I think she's in the Midwest area. Favorite kind of cheese. I was waiting for one of these. In my Instagram post, I said I'll give you all one freebie. My favorite flavor of candy is red and purple. And yeah, I know it's just the colors, but basically all red candy is great. So Samantha Sam wants to know, what is my favorite kind of cheese? If I'm going on sandwiches or if I'm grabbing, a cheese cube, I'm going pepper jack all day. Love it. Definitely rolling with that. Next one comes from Gara. He says, are you interviewing Mando? So for those of you who follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/popandcurbs, I held a Mario Golf tournament and it was epic. We had 24 participants, most of which came from the Hi, My Name is Mark Discord. Mark played in it. It was rad. I streamed it, and the championship came down to Mando, who I nicknamed Mando the Intern. He's a mod in the chat. And it was him versus Darth Amal, and Mando came out of the losers bracket and won it. So Gara's talking about Mando here getting the victory interview. I haven't interviewed him yet. I don't know. Maybe I'll let him call into the pod or something at some point. We'll see. This is an interesting one. This one came from Adrian C. Benfield. He says, imagine a world where Mark broke up the band and Tom and Travis sought out a new bass player to fill Mark's shoes. Who would it be? And would the fan base be more receptive of this than the current lineup? So this is interesting because I think regardless of, who joined or who left or whatever, there's going to be parts of the fan base that are split on this, okay? So it's interesting to think about. Obviously, with Tom leaving, there are folks who naturally are huge Tom fans. They enjoy the Tom songs and what Tom brought to the band with his songwriting and personality and things like that. And they're a trio, this isn't, the Philharmonic where there's 16 people or something and one person can slide out and it's no big deal. So, obviously, and Mark and Travis knew this, when you try to replace a member, somebody like Tom, as unique as Tom, there may be fans who are upset about that, and you have the right to do that as long as you're respectful about it, in my opinion. But, it's polarizing, and they knew that. That was obviously thought about, calculated, and ultimately they decided that, they want to continue Blink. They love it. They love touring. And so Matt Skiba joined. Now, a lot of folks, I feel like, just shit on current Blink just because Tom's not in there. And, thankfully I enjoy the music. And so while I respect your opinion, if you're putting it out there respectfully and not just hating or trolling or whatever, I understand that there are hardcore Tom fans, and by all means, if you are naturally drawn to his stuff, you might feel that is missing in the newer stuff. That's fair. I get it. It's whatever. But what Adrian's question here is, say that Mark left or didn't want to do Blink, or it just wasn't what he wanted to do at that point in his career, and he had other ventures and just couldn't commit to it, which is essentially what Tom said. Who would it be, and would the fans be more receptive? So, to make this as clean as possible as a hypothetical, let's do this. Let's say that Mark had left. Let's flip the tables here. Mark had left, and Dan Andriano is in Blink. Okay, let's flip it up. Instead of Skiba coming from Alk 3, let's put Dan Andriano in there. I think the fan base would probably do the same thing. It's somebody different. It's somebody, Mark has an incredible personality, incredible tough shoes to fill. I don't think it would be fair to rip Dan Andriano on any of that. I don't think it would be fair to rip Tom and Travis. I would certainly give their music a chance. I'm sure I would enjoy it. I'm sure I would love getting out to see them on tour. I guarantee you there would be what you would call Mark bots. We call the hardcore Tom fans who just praise Tom blindly and refuse to give anything else a chance. They're typically called Tom bots. I would think there would be some Mark bots out there who would be pretty pissed and vocal about it in the Instagram comments and on Reddit, which, to be honest, that's where shitty things and negative stuff is anyway. So no matter what they did, even if Travis left or, if Mark left in an alternate universe and was replaced by Dan Andriano, yeah, there would be folks who weren't particularly happy about it. There may be folks who, are just going to hold out until he comes back or hope he comes back. It's interesting to think about, but I would like to think that, the vast majority of fans would do what they did to Skiba and welcome him with open arms as somebody who is there, who cares, who wants to be there, and who ultimately gives our favorite band the chance to continue doing what they love. And that is what is the most important part to me. The dudes are happy. The dudes are able to get out there and do what they love. So thank you for that question, Adrian. That was a good one. Okay, this one comes from David John Sully. This is an interesting one. He says, if you could replace any member of Blink for an album with any artist not associated with Blink, who would it be? This is from @David John Sully, rad fellow across the pond. This is tough, man, because it's so hard to think about just a random artist, replacing them on an album that's already created, either just filling in vocally or on guitar or something, that's kind of weird. So what I have to do on this one is I'm going to cheat and I'm going to twist this question a little bit. So I'm going to use my time capsule here, David, and I'm going to go back to 96, 97-ish. At the time, there was a drummer for the Aquabats. His name was Travis Barker, and he was not affiliated with Blink. He was not associated with Blink at all. And, there was an album at the time called Dude Ranch. And I think for this scenario, what I would do is I would take Travis Barker of the Aquabats and I would pop him in there on drums on Dude Ranch just to see what it sounded like, just to hear it. I would love to hear Travis's take. Obviously, we got some of that stuff live, which is sped up. And don't get me wrong, Scott did a great job on Buddha, Cheshire, Dude Ranch. there are folks, I know Davy Jones, for example, actually prefers Scott's punk drumming over Travis's. But for me, huge Travis fan, love what he brings to the band. I would like to hear Travis on all of Dude Ranch. So that's how I'm going to answer that one. Speaking of Davey, next one comes from Davy Jones. So if you haven't heard his episode, still the most downloaded of the pod, longtime OG fan. He wants to know, tell the story about Adam's song in my mom's car and why Adam's song is so important to me. So in my conversation with Davey, we were going through basically Blink's discography, and when we got to Enema, really that was right where Davey was starting to fade out of the fan base, where a lot of us were just, finding out about Blink or starting to get into them really hardcore. And that's why Davey's perspective was so interesting, and that's why I think a lot of folks really enjoyed those podcasts with him, because it really gave us as close of a look as you can get to what it was like being a Blink fan from 95 through 98. When we were discussing Enema of the State, I mentioned that one of my earliest memories I have, sadly, I don't remember a lot of my early life, which is kind of sad. I don't know why. But, I was younger, I think I was just like 12 or 13 when Enema dropped. And I remember vividly driving in my car or driving in my mom's car, and we would always hope that Blink would come on like Casey Kasem's Top 40 or just on the radio. And I remember one time Adam's song came on the radio. She was driving. We were in a black minivan, and I was in the passenger side seat. Both my sisters were in the back seat, and I'm rocking out to this song. Obviously love Blink. I was into Blink, in the Dude Ranch era, so I had known them. So to hear them on the radio, this was awesome. Loved the song, and I'm rocking out, and I look over, and my mom's just crying. And that's something that's just always stuck with me. And it's one of really the most vivid memories I have of that particular time in my life. And it's just something that, I'll never forget that. And, my mom typically just listens to Christian music, that's it. So, for her to actually be listening to that song and listening to the words, that meant a lot to me, and that showed me how strong of a song that was, how powerful their songwriting could be, and that's something that's just always stuck with me. And so it's a super special song, obviously, to a lot of people. Prior to the Enema of the State tour, they hadn't played that since DJ AM had passed, and since Travis's plane crash. It was just too hard, Mark said. And, they brought that back it was the Vegas residency shows in 2018, I believe, was the first time they brought that back in a long time. And honestly, that was one of the main reasons I wanted to go out there and see those shows, because I did not want to miss hearing Adam's song live at some point in my life. And it was special. It was amazing. And then the next summer, they played it every single show on the Enema of the State tour, saw it twice. And when you hear that song live, especially when you're right up front, just vibing with the crowd, it's a special moment for sure. Okay, this one's cool. This one comes from Gracie. So she says, when did you start hardcore collecting Blink stuff? Baseball stuff, autograph stuff. So let me start with the Blink stuff. So actually, let me start with the baseball stuff. So I'm a huge baseball fan. I've obviously mentioned that. I help with a local baseball players charity. I have friends who work with MLB teams. So I'm a huge baseball fan. I go to spring training, and it's one of my favorite pastimes to watch. I watch a ton of games. And early on, I played baseball and from a young age, and I would go to games, typically Cincinnati Reds, St. Louis Cardinals in this area, Chicago Cubs, things like that. And I just remember early on, probably 8 to 10 years old or something, it was always just cool to meet your favorite player and try to get an autograph. Like, to me, that was just really cool. And it's just little moments like that give you a little bit of excitement, just getting acknowledged by your favorite player or something like that. And so really that's how I got into collecting baseball stuff and the autograph side of things. So I've collected autographs since I was probably 8, 9 years old. I have some stuff that's really old. And for the most part, it's always been baseball. And so I have a huge collection of like signed baseballs and team signed baseballs of some of my favorite teams. And, I always love meeting players. I've worked sports conventions. I've ran autograph signings, and I'm just super into that industry and that type of thing. It's a passion of mine. And so I've been collecting that stuff for a long time. I've been helping folks authenticate baseball stuff for a long time. I've literally taken down forgery rings, like assisted with identifying folks who were running forgery rings, which just fucking pisses me off so bad. And so I think it was Probably 2012 is when Blink released Dogs Eating Dogs bundles, and you could get an autographed poster. And for any of you who have read my signature study on Blink or have followed, any of my kind of knowledge dumps on that, Blink signed stuff is really rare and full band signed stuff is really rare. And so I had a strong background in autograph collecting and authentication and just assisting with, red flags and really just trying to make sure people got authentic stuff. And it's something that the thought of a little kid getting a forgery that some punk on eBay just scribbled on and just totally ripped off, a mom or something. And the thought of some kid getting that for Christmas just fucking pisses me off so bad. And I started noticing that with Blink. So I think that was probably when I started getting into Blink autograph stuff. Prior to that, as being in high school, throughout college and stuff, I never had money for collectibles or rad shit. I mean, if you listen to some of the previous episodes, my buddy Matt's grandma had to pay for us to go to Plus 44 and for Blink and shit. So I didn't have money to blow on that kind of thing. But around 2012, I got that bundle. It was signed by all three on the bottom. And so I started just kind of looking at other Blink collectibles and looking for signed stuff. And very quickly, I was noticing what I had noticed years prior in the baseball world is there's a lot of fakes out there and there's a lot of forgeries. And in Blink's scenario, there is not much information out there on what their signatures looked like. How did they evolve? Things like that. And so I really started at that time documenting every single Blink autograph I've ever seen. And from that point forward, I always try to help fans make sure they're getting authentic things. I've documented the band's signatures throughout history. I mean, their autographs have changed. So, I think a lot of people have stumbled upon my signature study over at Blink Online at some point. I've helped countless folks throughout the years and trying to help them make sure they get an authentic piece. And so that's really where I got into the hardcore collecting of Blink stuff, I think, is probably 2012-ish. Gracie also has another question. What does your wife think of all your Hi, My Name is Mark gear? So I rock Hi, My Name is Mark pretty much every day. Have a Hi, My Name is Mark tattoo. She loves it. And the thing I love the most is my young son loves it too. He sees it all the time. And, one of the first words really he was learning and saying was octopus. And he says octopus. And you may even just hear him screaming right there if the mic picked it up. Apologies. But it's so funny when he sees my shirts, he'll say, octopus. That's a blue octopus. That's a purple octopus. And then what I really like is he sees the little tag at the bottom. All of the Him shirts have that little octopus tag, and he'll point to that and he'll say, that's a baby octopus, which I think is just so sweet and so innocent. And so she loves it. They both love it. This one is kind of tied in with the one above. This is from Mike DeMonte. I had Mike on a previous episode to discuss To the Stars and UFO stuff, along with his book at the time. And he said, how did you become a signature expert? So I mentioned a lot of it earlier, and I don't know that I like the word expert. I mean, I don't think I'm an expert. I'm not charging people, but I will say that I can guarantee you I have looked at more autographs and I've documented more autographs, and I probably have more Blink autographs than anybody on the planet. I don't like to humble brag too much, but I'm just saying from 2012 onward, I look at Blink autographs every single day. I've documented every single one I've seen. I've documented every forgery I've seen. And so, it's one of those things where people always ask me, they're like, well, how can you tell that's real or not? You could never know that unless you're there seeing it signed. And people sign their names different every time, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's valid. I understand your viewpoint. But for someone who is in the autograph industry, who is, very into this type of thing, following all of the authentication. And most importantly, I have studied this stuff. I've put my time in. I like my opinion. I would trust my opinion over PSA, over JSA, over Beckett. Those are the top three authenticators. Those are the ones that typically, are the good guys. They try their best, but I've seen Blink mistakes by them all the time. And so I can guarantee you, nobody looks at this stuff more than me. And so for that reason, I feel like if folks want to come with me with that type of thing, I have some sort of background to where I'm confident in giving folks answers on these. And I'll be honest, when there are ones that I get that I find questionable or I can't fully authenticate, I'm not doing this for money. I'll say, that's likely authentic, but I would pass on that. That's not a great example. But some of the stuff is just really interesting and you just pick up on it. So, as I said, their signatures have changed over time significantly. So sometimes I can tell a forgery because the seller will say, got this signed last week. And it's Mark's signature from 1994, and you can tell that they've copied it incorrectly. There are aspects of each of their signatures that when you look at them enough and you stare at them every day and you get a sense of the angle and the placement and the size and how often they sign and where they sign, I'll be scrolling through eBay looking at this stuff, and sometimes I can tell stuff's fake just from the thumbnail. I don't even have to take a deep look at it because there's just red flags right off the bat. So there's just stuff you pick up on when you stare at this stuff. It's like the 10,000 hour rule, and not that I feel like I'm, superb at this, or, the end all on this. I'm just a Blink fan who looks at this stuff a lot. And if you want my opinion, great, I'll give it to you. If not, it's all good. Keep it moving. But I'm the same way when I'm looking for autographs for folks. Like if I wanted a Derek Jeter autograph, I would go talk to Derek Jeter collectors who look at this shit every day and who get an idea of where he signs, what it looks like, how his signature has changed over time. There was an autograph Blink thing I saw the other day that came up, and somebody was signing Tom Blink, and it was on like a Neighborhoods album. And it's like, okay, Tom hasn't signed Tom Blink since 1999, 2000-ish. So you can tell right away that's gone. Sometimes they do stupid shit, like they'll put Matt on Dude Ranch on accident, or I've seen pictures of Matt in Blink and it's signed by Tom. The forgers just got fucked up and weren't paying attention. So, that's the type of thing. I know I'm rambling on here, and I've even mentioned that I could do an entire episode on this. But it's just little things that you pick up on from staring at this stuff all the time, paying attention to it. And I think it's just the 10,000 hour thing. You just got to put in the time to pay attention to it, study it, really want to learn about it, and kind of all just goes from there. This is a cool one. This is from Casey in Space, Casey 182. He says, who do you personally relate to and look up to the most from the Blink family? Which one of them inspires you to live your life the way you do? For me, Tom's ambition and passion resonate deeply within me, but all the guys, including Matt Scott, have attributes that are super inspiring. Thank you, Casey. This is a cool one. It's interesting. I had to think about this a little bit. And I think, similar to you, there are different attributes to each of them that I kind of feel like I resonate with. And others that I may not, as far as, say Travis goes, I don't know anything about, showing up in Versace or something, sitting front row at like a Gucci event in Italy. So that's hard for me to kind of put myself in those shoes, but I'll just go through, the different members. Like for Travis, I like tattoos. So I vibe with Travis on the tattoos, and I always love how he has time for his kids and loves his kids. And, Travis loves hip hop. I love hip hop. So for me, that's stuff that I can vibe with Trav. With Tom, like you, I think his ambition, the fact that he follows his dreams and his heart, I think that's really cool. That's something to vibe with. With Skiba, I like that, he's all about the art. And with Skiba, like, it's okay to be weird. Like, be weird. Who gives a fuck? So I think that's something that I appreciate and try to relate to with Skiba. With Scott, there's almost a part of me that's almost jealous of how he's able to just remain out of the limelight and not care and not want any attention. It would be the equivalent of you or us or me just deleting all our social media, not giving a fuck, never talking to anybody and just living about your life. In some sense, I'm almost jealous of that. But I would say as far as who I personally relate to the most, it would probably be Mark. We both like video games. We both like baseball. And he likes just hanging out with his family, and I'm the same way. I think that's really how my day goes. And so I think from that aspect, that's probably who I personally relate to the most, realistically. This one comes from B-Rad. He says, what song would you listen to on repeat forever? This is kind of tough. because if this is forever, you don't necessarily want it to be a sad one or one that's going to make you cry or feel down. So I think I would probably have to go with "Damn It," which, spoiler alert, is my favorite Blink song. So I think I would go with "Damn It" forever. And this question from B-Rad, as well, it kind of ties in with that. He says, "What made you start listening to Blink?" And it is the "Damn It" promo CD. I will post a picture of it. This was 1997-ish, and there was a promo sampler. It says "Damn It" all over it on the actual CD. And I remember my buddy had it, and we would listen to it all the time. They just looked like they were having so much fun, just dicking around in their little cowboy outfits on the cover. We loved how it said the F word in it, being young punks. And so that really changed me and my Blink fandom forever. So that was the first time I started listening to Blink, and they've been my favorite band ever since. This one comes from Lick My Bacon. This is an interesting one. With Tom being a creative force and pushing forward, how should they continue without him there? This is kind of a three-parter. I'll take it in three different parts. I think they continued exactly how they needed to continue without him there. Obviously it's a calculated decision. It's something where they decided, we want to do this, and we feel like we have the right. In my opinion, they absolutely do. And, I think if they came out of the gate with kind of a weird indie, kind of a dark album, it would have been interesting to see how the fan base took that. But I think, reestablishing Blink as the pop punk kings they are, I think coming out with California was great. I think following that up with Deluxe was great. And then I think getting into, where we are now with 9 is exactly where they need to be. He says, what if Tom came back? That's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I think that's something to where they would just have to get in a room and start jamming, and, whatever comes out at that point. It'd be tough. I think you would have that dynamic pool that they all have. Probably, just getting back to the neighborhoods and dogs eating dogs type of thing, where you've got a little bit of AVA in there. Obviously, that's what Tom's used to playing these days. But then you got Travis in there, and you've got Mark kind of pulling it back into that pop punk zone. It'd be interesting. And then he says, basically, what do you think Blink should sound like in 2021? I want to see them continue on with what they did with 9, which is essentially like anything goes, do whatever. Let's get in there and have some fun. Let's keep it fresh. Let's keep it modern with some of the production techniques. I think 9 is an incredible album and exactly where they need to go and keep going. It'll be interesting to see, because some of the later stuff we got from them with Quarantine and Not Another Christmas Song really are more along the lines of fast punk. So that's why I'm so stoked to hear whatever comes next from the dudes. This is from K Payne. What Blink song is not on their set list that you would like to hear? Gosh, this, taking into account that Skiba is there, this is the new stuff. I want to hear No Heart to Speak Of, or if that is too hard to pull off and would destroy Matt's vocal cords, which I think it might, I would go with The First Time. Those are my two favorite songs off of 9. I would love to be in a crowd hearing those. I think it would be amazing. Okay, getting down to the last couple. This is an interesting one. This is from Liz Dynamite. She says, if you could choose Blink's entire set list, what would you choose? Okay, I put some thought into this. The set list is always a hot topic. Whenever they start touring, there are folks who think they should play for 3 hours. There's folks who think they don't play enough new stuff, not enough deep cuts. Building a set list is probably pretty difficult. In this exercise, it was difficult for me. You have to take into account realistically what they are going to play. They're not going to play sometimes. They're not going to bust out, super deep cuts on the back half of an album from 25 years ago at a show in front of, 10 to 15,000 folks, some of which who may be seeing Blink for the first time. As much as us hardcore fans want it to happen, it's not. These dudes are the ones playing to the crowd. They know damn well what, they're seeing when they look out there as far as the vibe, as far as the mood. I know they put a lot of thought into building these. And so it's always interesting. You got to span multiple decades of discography at this point. You got to play the hits. There's certain things they have to play. And so it's interesting. And, I wanted to remind myself of really what they had been playing because, they haven't toured in a couple years at this point. And so when I went back and looked, 2019, they started with the entire Enema of the State album, so that doesn't really count. So I had to go back to 2017 to get a full length set list of Blink. Not like a festival show that are typically shortened or something like that. And so first, I want to read off a full set list from 2017. They open with Feeling This, which is great. They went into Rock Show, Cynical, Anthem Part 2, What's My Age Again, First Date, Bored to Death, Built This Pool, Down, I Miss You, Dumpweed, Reckless Abandon, She's Out of Her Mind, Windy Clear, Violence, Sober, Family Reunion, Dysentery Gary, Los Angeles, Small Break, and then after the encore, All the Small Things, Bohemian Rhapsody, and Damn It, they closed with. That's a fucking badass set list right there, folks. Holy hell. And you're talking about getting some deep cuts and representing multiple things in there. I mean, Windy Clear and Anthem 2. She's Out of Her Mind's on there from Cali. So that's a great set list. So what I did is I took the same amount of songs, which are 22 there, and I went through and I tried to realistically set what I would think would be an ideal set list if I had to write it out today. I'm keeping this with Skiba in the band, so this might change if Tom were in the band. I would probably tweak this a little bit. Again, there has to be a good representation of at least most of the albums. You have to play certain hits, and you have to be mindful of Skiba and the new stuff as well. So this was an interesting exercise. In fact, I encourage you all to do it if you're bored. But there was 22 songs, and this is what I would do. I would start with Feeling This. I think that is an amazing, opener as soon as the curtain drops. Feeling This. Second, I'm going Rock Show. Third, I'm going The First Time. Okay? I got to hear The First Time live. I love it. I hope they play it. From that, I'm going into Anthem 2. I love Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. That song gets me super hype. 5, What's My Age Again? That's a hit. They're going to play it. 6, this is one maybe a lot of people wouldn't have on there, but I would put Up All Night on there. I think that's, a neighborhoods hit that would be rad to get on there. 7, Bored to Death. I think that is the one from Cali that they will play forever. 8, I got to get some deluxe in there. I'm going to go with 6-8. So when I was picking the songs, off of deluxe, it was really between probably 6-8 and Misery that I personally would want to choose. And so I went with 6-8 because I feel like that's a little bit more of a banger. 9, Hearts All Gone. Again, getting some neighborhoods love in there. Primarily, on some of these songs, I'm also keeping in mind what are Mark songs, with Tom not being there. 10, No Heart to Speak Of. I think if they can pull that off live with Skiba and he can still have a voice after it, oh my God, so many people would love to hear that and be stoked for that. After that, Josie, let's get some Dude Ranch in there. 12, this might catch people by surprise, Dogs Eating Dogs. I love that. I love that song. It's a Mark song. It's a quick banger, and I would love to see that EP get a little bit of love in there. 13, Dark Side. Let's get some more 9 in there, keeping it current. 9 never really got a proper tour, so I'm trying to give these songs some love. 14, I Miss You. That's one they're going to play. 15, Adam's Song. I just think, at this point, folks really want to hear that. It's special. It's a moment they'll never forget. 16, Stay Together for the Kids. So that's a really sad 3 songs there, but I think that would be kind of a cool mood at that point in the set. 17, Mutt. I think that's just such a great Enema song. It's Mark's favorite song to play on bass, he said multiple times. 18, this may catch people by surprise, but Los Angeles. I think Los Angeles is a great song live. When I've seen it multiple times, it was great. The crowd loved it. I'm putting that in there. And then at 19, before the encore, I'm going with Man Overboard. I think that's a great song, and I think the So Sorry It's Over is just great to kind of say, oh, that's all, folks. You guys were the best crowd ever. Catch you next time. Head backstage, knowing damn well they're going to come back out. In fact, Mark jokes about it sometimes. And then I think for the encore, you come out, and these are my 3 for the encore. Dumpweed. So, Dumpweed's a great opener as well. But for me, let's kick off the encore with it and let's just get people going nuts. Let's go straight into All the Small Things next. And then let's close with Damn It. So that is my set list. If I had to do it front to back and pick it realistically, playing most of the hits, spanning multiple decades at this point. And then, with Skiba being there and giving some love to the new stuff. The two that are notably gone from that are Violence. That is typically a staple in their set list. That's really where they kind of do the drum intro and extended intro with Travis. And then First Date is gone from that. But to me, that's my perfect set list for now. Some of those might be slightly interchangeable, 1 through probably 17-ish. You can mix and match some of those in between there. But, I feel like that's pretty solid. Okay, getting down to the last few. This is great. This has gone on much longer than I even expected. So again, thank you all for sending these in. I hope you're enjoying it, or maybe you turned it off 30 minutes ago. It's all good. This from Blink Still Rules. He says, favorite guitar riff. I got to go with two that I really enjoy playing after I learned them, and I actually learned them fairly recently. I'm going to go with Wasting Time as my favorite, and it's one that if you try to learn it on guitar, at first you're like, what the fuck? How was he playing this? This is crazy if you learn it the proper way. And then once you practice it and keep playing it and keep playing it, it's just so nice to nail it. It just feels so good. So I'm going to go with Wasting Time. A follow-up on that is going to be Touchdown Boy, and that's another one to where it just feels so great to nail it. It's tough. And that is one of the ones, those two songs, I did not know those on guitar until 4 or 5 months ago when I was building my sticker strat. And I just thought, what, if I'm going to build this, I want to learn some of these songs that Tom was actually playing on his, getting the same tone and everything. And those are two songs that really just totally expanded my viewpoint of how good Tom is at guitar. I mean, these songs are tough to pull off. They're quick. And especially on Touchdown Boy, he sings and plays that at the same time. So for anybody who shits on Tom's guitar playing, learn Touchdown Boy, sing it at the same time you're playing that little riff, that and also get some gnarly jumps and kicks in there, because Tom was doing all that. He was nailing it. They were playing fast as fuck. So, I mean, those are both just really rad songs to play on guitar. This one is from Drumming Muse, aka Q182. So Blink Still Rules and Q182, Drumming Muse. They've done a ton of research on that sticker strat project, by the way. So huge shout out to them. He says top 3 records. You guys know the first one, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. That's the podcast logo. No surprise there. Favorite album of all time. Second, I had to think about this earlier today. I think because of how iconic it is, how much of a masterpiece it is, at this point today, I'm putting Enema of the State at number 2. It's just really tough to leave that low, I mean, it's just so iconic, literally changed the game, for their personal lives, for their careers, for pop punk, for music in general at the time. So I'm putting Enema of the State at number 2. Number 3, this is where things got really interesting, and you can hate on me all you want. You can tell me I'm crazy. I'm putting 9 at number 3, okay? I love that album. I'm still listening to it all the time. Now, I don't know, 3 through 6 and Blinkland can probably rotate to me pending the week, pending the mood. What I love about Blink so much is just how, each of those albums is so special to me, takes me to a particular point in my life at that time. But honestly, 9 is an incredible album, and I'm putting it at number 3 right now. Last one. If you could listen to only one Blink, Plus 44, or Angels album for the rest of your life, what would it be? This is from Michael Stuckey. See, and I also took this question 2 ways. If I had to choose one from all of Blink and sideband land to listen to forever, I'm going to go with Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. I mean, it's my favorite album of all time. It has happy moments. It has sad moments. It has funny moments. So I think that would be kind of an interesting take on it. Plus 44, I think in all of Blink and sideband land, I think Plus 44 honestly is my number 2 favorite album. So that's right up there, but I think the mood of Plus 44 might be a little bit darker. So I don't know that I would necessarily put that on repeat on a stranded island forever and make it too long, but I'm going with Toy Page on that. If I had to let's take this the other way. If I pick one Blink, it's Takeoff. If I do plus 44, they only had one, so that's easy. Same with Boxcar, be that one. Angels, I'll answer this. I'll spin it just for the heck of it. I think I would go with I Empire for Angels and Airwaves, to be honest. It has my favorite Angels song to date, Secret Crowds, on there. Really enjoyed that album. So in Angels Land, if I had to pick one to spin forever, I'm going with I Empire. But I will say, in a couple weeks, I think there is a damn good chance that might change, because Tom has said this whole time, we've discussed this, you've heard this, he has said that he thinks he is writing the best album of his career. And while I don't think it will ever be, as iconic as Blink, and he probably would admit that as well, I think Lifeforms definitely has a chance to be the best Angels and Airwaves album ever. And, from what I've heard so far, it's amazing. So can't wait to hear that in a couple weeks. That is going to do it. That's all the questions I had. Gosh, I thought this was going to be 20 minutes and it's over an hour. This is great. Thank you again to everybody who sent these in. This was just kind of a fun bonus pod. Still hoping to get one out at the end of the month, whether that's the neighborhoods or the Lifeforms review. I will get to that definitely at some point. So I appreciate you all hanging out. This was great. I will catch you all soon. Definitely follow me on Twitter and Instagram at PoppinCurbs, and we'll chat in a couple weeks. Thanks. See ya.